Good morning, Pam. This is Robbie, and I've tried to start to send you my unabridged autobiography, and I didn't get very far because I couldn't get YouTube to accept my hour-long video, so now it's got to be in 15-minute intervals. Um, and this is just a small introduction. Um, Thinking about songs that have been important in my life and how I want to share them with you. Um, uh, so, I loved singing when I always loved to sing. My mom said she always loved to hear me sing. Sang in church when I was growing up, sang in the church choir, sang in the choirs in school. Um, and then I got interested in the bass because they were going to need a bass player to go to, because they were talking about going to Montreux, Switzerland to play at the International Jazz Festival. And I go, wow, I need to get in on that. And plus I had some friends that wanted to have a band that play dances and stuff. So that's what I concentrated on was the bass. Um, so when every time I loved singing, I was in the choirs and stuff. But if they needed accompaniment, I was playing the bass. Um, so when I graduated from high school, my bass was my primary life that I'd had, other than Gloria. So when I went to college in Gunnison, Colorado, and felt that I wanted to be a musician, that's the direction I looked at. And the school, I didn't have a bass, never did own an orchestral bass. Um, so that first summer that I got there and signed up for private bass lessons, my instructor was, where is this guy coming from? But I started from scratch and worked my tail off for about 9 months. And he was, after 9 months, and after I had my jury, after the end of my first year, he was fairly impressed. And I was excited. But during that same year, I was taking voice lessons with Mrs. Venturo, who had come from Columbia University, come from Columbia Ivy League school. Older lady, and I thought I was taking voice lessons just for my own enjoyment, and so one day in class in our lesson, she goes, "You need to make a choice, the bass or the voice." Right, this at the time I thought, great, just something I can take off my load and spend more time with the bass and so on and so forth. But looking back, I keep asking myself, did I have a voice that could have been that she could have done something with, that I could have done something with? Of course, realizing if I was going to make a career at singing, I'd probably have to do plays and things that I had never done before, and kind of scared me a little, I guess. To hide behind the bass was easier. So that's where I kept my focus, but I always wondered, did I have a voice good enough to maybe had done something with, other than just my mom liking my voice. I like singing. I always sang in church. Um, and so that was that. But she had told me to make a choice, so I did. But I never owned my own bass. My voice I always had, but I'd taken voice lessons off and on through the years. I've sang in church. I've sang at a couple of coffee houses, and those were within the last 10 years at the coffee houses because I was taking voice lessons at West Music, and the lady that was my instructor, my accompanist, she and I had a lot in common and liked a lot of the same music. She could tell what I liked, and that's what most of this is. I need to try and hurry this up, but the first song that I'll probably sing will be quote my theme song by Dust and Ashes, and that's a whole nother story. Dust and Ashes, Jim Moore and Tom Page, and they were a big part of my life back in 1970 when I was 15. Wow. But they had a couple of songs off an album, and plus they came to Washington. They even performed at our junior high. They were brought in by our senior high youth group at the Methodist Church, and they were there for a couple of weeks. But they had really spoke to me, touched me. And their album was entitled Both Sides Now. Wow, that goes back a ways. Joni Mitchell with Both Sides Now, and that's kind of where I'm at a good part of my time. And but the two songs that I want to sing off that album, the one I sung a lot, that was entitled Down the Road of Life, or Down the Road, I can't remember how it goes, titled. And I've sung that a lot, especially when I first got in church in Hawaii, so much so that my wife got sick and tired of hearing it. But I do remember one Sunday morning, my pastor's wife needed an extra song for worship, and she just turned to me at the spear of the moment and said, "Get up there and sing your song," which of course I did. And then the other song, which I've never sung before, you're the first to hear it, for me anyway. It's called Doing Nothing for Hours, a song about that Jim Moore and Tom Page and some others had written about their experiences dealing with the inner city youth of Washington, D.C. Not a pretty picture. And they said it was extremely hard to sing and do and think on because it was so close and so real in their life. They said that song was to introduce the sheltered to the shattered. And in 1970, I would say Washington, Iowa was pretty sheltered. And you would probably agree. And then the next couple of songs I'll probably do is from Neil Diamond, the jazz singer. And those both got some history to them. But I like Neil Diamond. One was entitled Hello Again, and the other one called Songs of Life. And I'll talk about them more later. And then there's a song that speaks to me every day that I sang back in 2003 or 4 in church when we were in Texas, entitled Who Am I? Never quite sure who I am. But that's a whole nother story. That's the reason for, quote, the unabridged autobiography. And then another one of my favorite songs is What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. You know, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but I love the way the movie Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams and how that movie ended as he's flying off from Vietnam and they're playing that song, What a Wonderful World. Kind of wasn't so wonderful then, but there's a lot of world that's always good. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I just want to give you an introduction. And there's a lot more to follow. But I'm going to try and give you these songs first so you can at least get an idea where my mind's at, I guess. And I'll talk to you later. I love you, Pam, and have a good day.